Welcome back, guys. Thanks for watching my channel. Welcome back to class. For you guys that are going to sit in the coat closet, get up front. This class today involves chord theory and some explanation of chord theory and all the things attached to it, and a bonus lesson at the end. So the bonus lesson is a very, very valuable lesson. And thanks for watching my series on music theory. We are now into the fourth video. If you've been watching the other videos, I know you've been learning because you're not asking too many questions, which means I'm being pretty thorough. So for you new guys, go back and watch the other ones because everybody else watching them is understanding things very clearly and very easily. So I suggest that you go back and watch that. If you want to get caught up, if this is your first time watching one of these videos, start from the beginning and work your way in, and I'll see you later on the videos. But for you guys who've been watching them, we're ready to move on to understanding chord theory and all about chords. So there should be no questions about what's going on once I get done explaining how they all work. We'll show you some examples of common chords you'll see, and then you'll be able to use this information to build any chord you want and find the notes of any chord. By the end of this lesson, you will have the knowledge, and you should be working towards memorizing all the notes and all the chords in all the keys. It's easier than you think because there's a formula to it, just like math. So when I show you the formulas and how to use them, you'll be able to figure out any note to any chord in any key in a matter of seconds. And you'll probably be able to just do it in your head real quick once you figure out what we're doing here. This is not hard. I've been teaching for a very long time, so these things are not things I'm figuring out. I know how to teach it. I've got thousands of players out there who play well because of my knowledge and my teaching processes and my business and my way of teaching. So if you've figured it out yet, I'm probably the only channel that actually teaches you how to play guitar, like an actual guitar lesson that you'd get, not just, some guy throwing a few minutes of something at you with no real full explanation behind it. Assuming everybody's an idiot, they don't tell anybody anything, maybe. I don't know. That's what I would always think. Like, why aren't you telling these people the theories behind what you're saying or playing unless you think they can't learn it? Or unless you don't understand it that well yourself. Like, how could you possibly know it and not be able to teach it? If you know it well, just explain it to somebody else the way you know it and they'll know it. That's teaching. So I'm going to explain things to you very simply and easy. This channel is called, I use like the basis around the channel is Guitar Made Easy. Things are easy to understand. I use basic terminology. I don't use complicated words, and I don't fluff things up, and I don't make it sound harder than it really is. I keep it basic so that everybody at every skill level and every age level can understand everything well. That is the point of the channel, so that you all learn confusion free. I like to think I'm one of the few channels that you can go to and learn all your music theory the way any professional knows it, the way any of your heroes know it, and you can get to that level of playability on this channel. I honestly don't know any other channel that would get you there the way this one will. This is a start to finish channel from the beginner to the professional Yngwie Malmsteen level player. That's what you're going for here on this channel, is to bring yourself to a level of playing that is your own personal best. Whatever talents you are able to pull out of your own self, this channel is going to help you get there. My knowledge and wisdom will help you get there. I've done it with thousands of musicians. You're no different. If you bleed red, you're good. I can take care of you and help you out. Just follow what I'm saying. You have to trust somebody. So if you don't trust me, then you might as well just get off the channel because you don't need me, and I don't, it's not going to help you at all. You need to trust whoever you're taking in the knowledge from. So if you trust me, then you'll do the work I ask you to do, like a student. If you were coming into me every week sitting down, I would say, you need to do this, or I'm just not going to be able to teach you. And so you do the work. So if you've done the work in the past few videos, then you understand things. And when I refer back, you'll know what I'm saying, or at least you'll have a very good idea. And if you need to go back and write something out, pause the video, do whatever you got to do, go ahead and do that. Sometimes I write things out, I'll show them to you, and you can write things out yourself. A lot of writing is good. Writing is how you learn, writing is how you memorize, writing is how you figure out what's going on in your head to make your light bulbs go off about understanding things and concepts. So writing things out is the best way to eventually master the concepts. If you don't write it out, the guy that does will just know it a little better than you because he'll have figured things out you didn't. You can't make the bells and whistles go off and the connections and the bulbs if you don't write things out. We're building a guitar Bible, as you already know from watching the other videos, so we're going to add to that Bible today some valuable information, and here we go. The first thing we're going to learn about chord theory is the numbers and what they mean. Let's explain that, folks. All the numbers on chords. Some of you know some of this stuff. Some of you know all this stuff. Some of you know none of this stuff. So watch however you want. Do what you got to do. But if you want to get your own best education, I would just watch the whole thing and miss. This way you don't miss anything and you gain all the possible knowledge that this video can offer. And then you do what you want with it to make you reach your own personal best. You study it up and down till you know it so well that you've mastered it. You know it up and down. All right. The numbers mean this. The number means that a note has been added that far away from the root note of the chord. That far away from the root. So let's just use some simple examples. If you're playing a G major chord and you add a 4, you go to the G and you say G, A, B, C, you're adding a C note. Now, as you know from the other videos, I suggest you starting on your thumb to count, and I told you why already, because it works best for the brain. You want to learn something, your brain needs to know it's true, and it needs to see it. Okay, so it can't think it, it's got to see it. And the only way you can see it is using your hand, as I explained in the other videos. So now we're on our hand and we're counting 4 over. We get G, A, B, C. We know the answer is C. We know it's right. We can put it to memory and say 4 is C. Now, that's what that number 4 means. So if you see G add 4 or G4, it means G is adding a 4th letter from the root of G, including the G when you count. That is why, folks, I keep telling you, start on your thumb so you can't make a mistake. And when you don't make a mistake, you can commit it to memory. Now, you can commit it to memory after figuring it out only one time and then be in memory after that. Or you can count it 10 times without your hand and never put it to memory, because it will not go to memory unless you know and believe it's true. And in order for you to believe it's true, you have to see it for yourself. And the only way you can see it is by using this guy. G, A, B, C. Bingo. I know it's 4. My brain sees it's 4, puts it right to memory. Done. Now let's go do another one. You know what I'm saying? That's how fast you can learn this. So start learning your letters. Let's explain. G2 means you're adding an A. I'll get to showing you all how it works here, but let's explain it first, all right? So you understand the numbers, right? G major 7. I go to the key of G, not any old G chord. I have to have the G chord from the key of G, as we learned how to build the keys before. So you build your major scale pattern, you slap a G at the beginning, you build your notes, you see there's an F sharp in this key, and you know the 7th letter is going to be F sharp, because either now you're using your hand, like right today you're using your hand, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, we know it's 7, but you would know it's 7 because you built your major scale pattern and know that the scale says it's F sharp. Why is there an F sharp in G, folks? I know some of you know it because the pattern says so. That's why. Now, knowing that the key of G holds a 7, that's F sharp, you would not be wanting to go to the key of C and building the G chord to get your 7, because you get an incorrect 7 in that key. And I know you know why, so I'm proud of you for knowing. And the reason I know you know is because you didn't ask me any questions saying, Mezzy, can you re-explain that for me? I don't understand, which means I was thorough in the video and you understood it, which tells you the quality of the learning that you're receiving in this video. Now, listen, you got to start with the key name when you build your chords. All these chords we're getting the numbers from are starting with the name of the key of that letter. So because each letter, as we know, the Roman numerals, there's 3 majors and 3 minors. So this G major chord could be sitting in 3 different keys, right? It could be on the 1, the 4, or the 5. Well, you have to build it from 1 at all times. You always build it from the 1, so you know what the true notes are in that key. Now, we know the key of G has the F sharp as the 7. Great. The 2 would just be an A. The 4 would be C. The 7 is F sharp, as we were saying before. It's not F like it would be in the key of C, because the G is not on the 1 in the key of C, so you get a different letter. That's why we always begin from the 1 chord. So G being the 1, the 7th letter is F sharp. Now we know 1, 3, 5, 7. As we built our triads before, and then in the other video we built the tetrachord, 1, 3, 5, 7. We now know the 7 is 7 notes from the root. That's how all the numbers work. So let's take the 7, G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp. We now know it's the 7. Okay? Now, let's go to the octave. Let's move up. What does a 9 mean, right? I'm sure some of you guys know. Do you know what a 9 means? Good for you. I'm proud of you for knowing. let's just bear with the guys the people, the girls, the guys, the gals, whatever, people who don't know what a 7 and a 9 is. Let's just help them out, man, and just bear with me here. The 9, folks, if you haven't figured it out yet, is the octave to what? How many notes are there in a key? All right, 7. Isn't that odd that there's 7 notes in a key, 7 days in a week? Like, it's just it's just like the whole thing is like, nah, it's no accident to me. There's a system here that works. The whole universal system works together. Now, knowing there's 7 notes in the key, you go to the 7, the 8 is the 1, same note. 9 is the 2. Bingo, there it is. And we don't say 1, 3, 5 in the chord. We don't say 1, 3, 5, and we don't say 10. Okay? We don't say 8. You don't go, G adding 3 and then moving up 7 and saying 10. We don't do that. It's always going to be on the 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 11, and 13. Now, because we don't repeat the notes that build the chord. If you figured that out by now, we don't need to repeat those. We know they're there. We're only referring to notes we're adding to the chord that are not from the chord. That's why we only add in the numbers that are not from the chord. We already know 1, 3, 5 is there. We don't have to repeat it. Even if it's in octave form, we don't need to say it. We know it. Now you know that. So let's get to a 9. You have a G9. All right, this is where the guitar comes in, folks. This is where you're going to pick up your guitar maybe. And so if you've been writing stuff down, a little bit pausing, writing, great. I talk a little fast because we don't want you being here for an hour when I can squeeze this all in for you in 45, and you just pause when you need to pause because we want the lesson to be as jam-packed as possible. I'm trying to give you as much information in the shortest amount of time so you can absorb it all and then take it and just build it over the week until we get to the next video, which will probably be hopefully mid next week. So now, you look at a G9 on a guitar and you go, Mezzy, how on the earth do you play a G9? I've heard it, I've seen it, I kind of know what it is, but I don't know how to play one. Well, let's explain a few things about about a 9. 9 is an octave to the 2, so it's an octave from whatever your root is. You have a G, you have a lot of different pitches, right? Depending on what guitar you got, there's 4 different pitches right there. So it's like, Mezzy, which one is it? Well, it's the one from you're starting at. Wherever you're beginning from, you're going an octave from that one. Let's just say it like that to keep it easy. Now, let's just use this G major scale. This G major scale is very important. If you watch my other videos, you already know what it is, the G major scale. I'm not going to repeat all of that for you guys when it's already there in video form somewhere else. So we just watch it on another one of my videos. Everything is explained that I'm already talking about. I'm just referring back to some things for the guys who've already watched all these videos. Now, we use this G major scale to find the tone. So here's what works. Here's how this works. You need to find the tones of the numbers that are in the chord. So if you have a G9, you need to find that tone and then play that tone. And that tone 9 is the octave from your 2. So you know the G A is the 2. You need the higher A. So if this is A, well, then here's an A. Well, most likely, if you're going to play G, you're going to need this A to make it a 9, not this A to make it a 2. So where you play this B, you could lift this off for a 2 because you already have a B down here. So you could use this B, this A rather, as your 2 because 1, 2. Now, you use the major scale pattern, folks, to locate the tones you need when you're in this key of G. And you would do this for any key. If you're in A, then you use the major scale pattern on the A. But in G, we're going to use G. So when I'm on G and I want the 9th letter, and I'm not sure where the A, let's say you know it's an A, but you're not sure which tone is the 9. Here's an easy way to find it. Easy peasy, 1, 2, 3, right? That's what the kids all say. The kids want things to be easier. So if you're an adult, we're going to break it down to it's so easy that even kids can understand it, which means you should be able to understand it because there really shouldn't be anything difficult about this. Now watch how simple I find the 9. It really is this simple. If you know the pattern, you're golden. If you don't know it, you got to learn it, right? 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7, 3, 5, 7. Everything is almost the same. Except the 2 middle strings, D and G, you move in a fret to 4 instead of the 3. Otherwise, the whole thing would be 3, 5, 7 across the board. But you take the 2 middle ones, you move them into 4, 5, 7. Very simple, because we have B and F sharp in there. There's the B, C, D, and F sharp, G. Okay. So you need that half step there. There's your thing. There's your pattern. Now that you know it, let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. That's the 9th pitch. Right? The octave to the A. Now, you can't play this A chord, this A note, however, right, folks? When you're playing this G chord, unless you got, you're like Rubber Man, you can reach all the way over there. So what are we going to do? What do you think the obvious thing's going to be, guys? This is class. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Who's going to raise their hand and tell me the answer, right? Because it's basically just like a class. You're all sitting there going, I know the answer. I hope you do. All we're going to do is find that tone within reach of the chord. So maybe it's here. See? See? Now you can't see this is a 9. You can't tell that's 9. You just can't. You can't look at the chord and go, oh, there's a 9. No, I mean, you learn it's a 9, but looking in the beginning, you don't know it's 9. The way you find this 9 is to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then take this note, find it in the range of the chord you're playing, and you're good. Now, if you added it, you have to refinger, right? So maybe you get rid of something to make something else work. You got this A here, and you go maybe just G and D. You go, and you get that 9 in there. Now, maybe you're playing off this G. Now it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There. But you can't reach this G if you're going to play a G chord over here that's movable. You would need this G, this 9A. So maybe you do this, and you do this. The point is you use the scale to find the tone number you need. Do you need an 11? Just an octave from the 4, from the C, right? So there's the octave to the C, so we assume that's going to be 11. Let's just take a look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Right? Now you bring this C over somewhere. Boom, there it is. You add that into your G chord and you've got yourself now the chord you're looking for, the G11. Now, if you look in a book, you'll see the same fingering. There are many fingerings for these chords. So they're movable. You can play them anywhere on the guitar. Anywhere you find the tones makes the chord. So you begin with the root note of the letter you want to start with, and you count from that letter that many tones up to find that pitch. And that is what you're doing. So now let's get into sharps and flats. Let's just say we have a G7, right? G dominant 7. We have a sharp 9. Let's do a more common one for you guys. E7 sharp 9. Everybody knows that chord, right? It's king of the blues, right? E7 sharp 9. We know we have an E major chord first, E, G sharp, B. Then we get a dominant 7, though. So we take the 7, which we know is D sharp. We flat it 1 fret to get D. That makes it dominant. Remember, it's a minor 7 note on a major chord. That's what makes a dominant chord. So the 7 is a whole step from the root, as we learned. That's F, which G, if you do E, G, B, D, and D is a whole step from E. There's your dominant 7. Now we go to the 9, which would be F sharp. And the reason I'm choosing this chord for you is because there's a unique situation here where we're starting with a sharp and we're going to sharp. So I want to explain that to you. That's why I moved over from the G chord to the E chord. I think this is a better chord to explain it to you in, because it will show you more examples in the one chord. And it'll show you something that you run into later on, and you'll already know how to handle it. So let's look at the fact that we're sharping the second letter in G, or E rather. It's before noon, guys. I am not a morning person, so my brain blah, blah, blah. And just like you guys, you might get a little foggy. No big deal. You get to the right answer. That's all that matters. So we're in the E chord. The 2 is your F sharp, right? And we're going to sharp that F sharp. So what are you getting? You're technically going to get an F double sharp. But we're not going to call it that because we have an F sharp note in the key already. And since you're adding this note to the chord, we're not getting rid of any other notes in the scale. So we're not going to say F double sharp because we would only do that if there was no other F note in this scale or this key. But we do have one. We have an F sharp already. So we're not going to have 2 F sharp notes in the same key. And really, that's just the way that works. So we can't go from F to F sharp. So this is a rare situation where we're going to go up, but we're going to call it G instead of F double sharp. That's what it's called. So we're going to really be going E, G sharp, B, D, adding another G. Now, I guess different publications might call it an F double sharp. But in a collegiate situation, you're going to want to call it a G to get the test answer correct if you're trying to get a grade. You want to get a better grade, you go with the technically correct collegiate answer, which is a G. And you'll see that in when it's written out as a chord, you'll see the G with the G sharp because we're raising the note up. So there is a G sharp in the scale. So I know you're all going, hey, but there's G sharp too. That's true. But we're raising the note up, and we just can't have 2 F sharp notes. We can't have F and F sharp. We can have G because G is only in the chord. It's not in the scale. So it's okay to call the note a G when you're adding it to the chord, because you're only adding it to this chord for this one particular situation. It doesn't stay there all the time as a second letter G. And we don't call it F double sharp. We just don't. Nobody does. Now, if you want to know why they don't call it F double sharp and they call it a G, I'm giving you what I think is the best explanation. Because when you move the note up, you're not going to go. We don't ever want to say F and F sharp, F double sharp in the same key. We'd rather say F sharp, G, G sharp, because it flows and keeps things moving. So you really only want to try to have one letter of each one in the scale. That is the ultimate goal. That is why we have double sharps and double flats, is to keep one letter in of each letter in the scale. But this is not a scale situation. This is a chord situation. So when you're in a chord situation, things can be different. There's a little room to manipulate and move to get what you need. So we're going to take F sharp up to a G, and you're going to now have E, G sharp, B, D, and G. And when you play that, there's just, you're going to find it anywhere on the guitar you want. So the typical place to play that would just be this chord. You have your E, you've got a G sharp, you've got this D, and you got the B, right? So we see E. It's not even going to be the whole, it's E, G sharp. There's your D, right? And down here you squeeze this in, and you get that. See this? E, and there's the F sharp. There's the G. There's that G note. E, G sharp, B. Now look, we only have 4 notes, but what is this chord? E, G sharp, B, D, G, right? It's 5 letters. We've only got 4 here. So let's look. E, G sharp, D, and G. What are we missing? The B, right? Why are we missing the B, folks? Does anybody know why we don't see the 5? Why is there no 5 in E7 sharp 9, folks? I'm going to tell you why. Well, it's 2 reasons. One reason leads to the other reason. The reason is because we don't have enough fingers. That's the basic reason, right? We don't have enough fingers. I mean, we don't have tentacles, right? I can't get the other hand in there. And I'm not a magician, so I can't. No one can do that. You only have 4 fingers. You got to pick 4 notes. That's the first obvious reason. And now comes the second reason. We only can pick 4 notes, so which one of them gets left out? That's the question. Which one gets left out and why? I'm going to tell you why. Some of you might already know. If you do, I'm proud of you. Tell me if you know, but don't tell anybody why. The reason, I'm going to tell you right now, so it doesn't matter. You can leave a comment if you want. I don't care. Comment all you want. You can say, Mezzy, you're messed up. It doesn't matter. You can leave negative comments. I don't care. It's traffic. I don't give a shit. I don't care. Don't really bother me, So look, here's the deal. The 5 is not in the name of the chord, folks. It's that simple. It's not in the name of the chord. When you see E7 sharp 9, we see E7. That means E and 7 got to be there. E7 indicates it's a major chord, so we need the 3 to dictate major or minor. You must have a root. You don't always need the root, but we need it this time. We need a root. We need a third, E and G sharp. We need a 7. We're calling it a 7. Is in the name of the key. We need a 7. So we've got to have a D, which was my ring fingers on that D. And then we're sharpening the 9, so you have to have the sharp 9. What note is not called out in that chord? The 5. It's assumed the 5 is there in the major portion of the chord, but we don't actually need it because it's not required. And the reason it's not required is because it's not in the name of the chord. Any note that is in the name of the chord is required, except for occasionally you'll see chords that don't have the root note. When they're huge chords, sometimes they won't have the root because we'll know it's that chord because no other chord could contain all those specific notes. Let's say it's 5 or 6 notes in the chord and the root's not there. We're still going to know if you put that root in, it would be that chord. So sometimes, like in jazz, you won't see the root. Or in a really deep embellishment, you won't see the root. A really deep set of chords where we know it can only be that one chord just missing the root because those notes won't work any other way. So let's just say somebody says this is E7 flat 911. There may be no E because we know everything else matches the E chord. So we need to leave something out because we don't have enough room, no hands, no space or something. Maybe you don't have enough fingers and you want to leave a note out. You choose to leave the root out. You'll see artists do that. You'll see songs and chords where the root note is not there occasionally. It's just because they need all the color of the other notes to make the flavor of the chord, and they don't need the root because we already know that's the kind of chord it is with all these notes that are going into there. That no other chord could be these notes. So we already know that process of elimination makes it whatever we know it to be. Now, that might be a little over some of your heads, but go back and listen to it a couple times. Sleep on it like I told you in the other videos. Eat a nice meal. Get a good sleep on it. If you don't understand something in theory land, Get a good listen to it before you go to bed, and then fall asleep to it, and it'll boggle around in your brain, and sooner or later, within a few days, some bells will go off. Because you do need, like I told you before, you need that private time, that undivided time by yourself to let your brain just figure out what the heck just what got put in there. What information just went in, it's going to make heads or tails of it. It does that when you're sleeping. So if you need to see this again, just put it on and go to sleep, and you'll probably get it in a couple days. That's how that works. So let's just look at some chord theory, some basic things like this C major chord, okay? We have the C chord. You know you have two C's in here, so you know you can get rid of one. If you just wanted a simple C add 2, you got to add a D note. So you get rid of this E note on the second finger of your C major chord. You play as an open D string, and look, C, and you just use the basic scale thing like we're showing you here, C, D, E. So you go, there's your second tone. It's the same thing with whichever string you start on. There's the D tone you're looking for. That's your open string. So all you do is take a C chord, pitch this for you, take the C, get rid of the E, you now got a C add 2. If you want C add 9, you keep this, put the E back in. Now look, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You need this D sound, this tone of D. But you're not going to reach this all the way from here. I mean, I don't think you are. You would if you're 6'9" or you're a basketball player. Maybe you're Scottie Pippen or something. But if you're like this and you need that 9 all the way out there, right? What do you need? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There it is. So grab it with your pinky. You go bang, bang, boom. Right? You get that pink. You got a little exercise for you. Be 1, 2, 1, 2. Memorizing the feel from one string to the next, so you can just kind of go like this. From the G. Now again, C, E, G. You don't tell anybody you're playing the high G. You would just play it and then move it up to the D. C add 9. Now, other people play C add 9 like this because the D is here. You also get the higher G when you play the C chord. So you get the high G and the high 9 and that 9, and it makes a sweeter sound than if you played it like this. Because you don't have this high G in there. So C add 9. Then that's why people flip to this G. Because G and D are still in it. So when you have these two notes down, G and D, well, they're just part of a regular G chord. Because again, we don't name the 1, 3, and 5. So you're flipping from 1, 3, 5 in the G, all of a sudden you're adding a C and an E, and it makes it C add 9. And you didn't even have to add the D in for the high 9. It was already there when you play it like this. Okay? So that's your 9. So this 9 does not sound like this 9, the typical C add 9. So remember, the higher the note, the sweeter the sound. And that is why people play C add 9 like this, because this G makes the chord sound sweeter than versus the open note. If you play like a, like if you play, I'm saying when you play C add 9 like this versus like that. So if you just do this one, you get a low E in the C chord instead of the higher G. So it's just a sweeter sound, that's all. And that's how that works. Now let's take a look at that D. I just whacked that G note, right? So then what would this chord be called? We didn't discuss this yet, so I'm going to go over it for you right now. We got rid of the F sharp and we put in the G instead. So what did we do? We know D chord is D, F sharp, A. We know, I'm going to run this over for you guys kind of quick. Try to follow. We know the D chord is D, F sharp, A. F sharp is the 3. It's in the middle. We got rid of the 3. We replaced it with the 4, which is G. D, E, F, G. So G is 4 from the D. We now replaced it. We didn't add, right? We didn't add because there's no F sharp. We took it away. So this is not adding the G. This is replacing the G. So this is not an add chord like we were going over. This is a suspended chord because what we did was we suspended the 3. We got rid of it, right? What do you do when you're in class and you get suspended? You get removed, right? So we removed the F sharp and replaced it with a G. When you remove the 3, you can replace it with the notes that sit next to it on the left or right, so the 2 or the 4. And when you do that, it's called a suspended chord. You suspended the 3rd, which is the permanent note, and replaced it with a temporary, a 2 or a 4. The notes you replace it with must be on the sides of this 3, so you only have a 2 and a 4. So we count, we realize G is 4 from D. We now have a D add 4 chord. We added the 4. When you add a 4, when you call this D suspended, I'm sorry, oh my gosh. Oh, D suspended 4 we have now. So now we suspended the 3, we replace it with the 4, and you've got D suspended 4. Simple as that. If you were to replace it with the E, then you'd have D suspended 2. So you go, and a lot of people will mix them all together like this. So if you saw something like that being played in a book or a song, and you looked at the tablature, you would see a lot of chords running the page. It would be like D, D add 9, D suspended 4, D suspended 2, D, D add 9, D suspended 2, D, D suspended 4, D, D suspended 2, D suspended 4. Every chord would be switching because every one of these is a different chord. So right there you'd see 4 or 5 chords. It would say D, D suspended 2, D suspended 4, back to D suspended 2, then to a D. And it would look like, oh my God, I got to play all these chords, when really you're just popping fingers around. So that's what I'm trying to explain to you, that the chord name looks a lot more complicated than it really is when you understand what to do. Suspended chords can only be 2 kinds of chords. There's a suspended 2 and a suspended 4. That's it. You replace the 3 with the 2. You replace it with the 4, good bada bing, you're done. C, C-E-G, C-D-G becomes C add 2, C-F-G is C add 4. It's very simple. G-B-D, 1-3-5, G-A-D, 1-2-5, right? G-C-D, 1-4-5. Hey, isn't G-C-D also 1-4? That G-C-D chord, that G suspended 4 chord, 1-4-5, rings a bell, right? Because that's your 1-4-5 for the major chords of the key. G, C, D, that's your 1-4-5 in the key of G. See, little bells go off. Some things go, hey, that's the same thing I already know from before. Yeah, things are similar and they relate, and hopefully some bells go off for you. And so that is basically what goes on with chord construction. You got your suspended chords, you have your add chords, and that's when you add a note. And if you're flatting a note, you're flatting it by, if it says flat a note, flat 9, flat 7, flat 11, you're flatting it by 1 fret only. If it says to sharp the letter, you're raising it up 1 fret only. That's how it works. Unless it says to double sharp it, then you're raising it a whole step. If it says to double flat it, you're lowering it a whole step. And we went over this chord thing before, so I'm going to say this again because I got a comment from one of my viewers, which I'm glad you wrote. How do we know if to call the note F sharp or G flat when I'm moving to the note? If you're moving up from an F, you're going to call it F sharp. If you're moving from G to F sharp, you're going to call it G flat. Because here's how it works. The definition of sharp is to raise, and the definition of flat is to lessen. So, if you go from F up to F sharp, you've raised the pitch. You call it F sharp. You can't call it G flat because that would indicate that you came down from G to that note. So even though this pitch is F sharp, if on the scale, in theory, you were going from G down to this note, you wouldn't say G to F sharp, you would say G to G flat. So when you're building your chords on paper and you don't know, and you're thinking there's an enharmonic there, when you're going up to that enharmonic, you will call it a sharp. Or if it's a sharp note, you will call it whatever is natural. But if that note, if it's a natural and you're going down to that letter, you don't call it a sharp, you call it a flat. Because you lessened the note. You made the pitch go down. And to go down is to lessen, and to lessen is to flat. So when you raise the pitch up, you call it a sharp. When you drop the pitch down, you call it a flat. That's how it works. Really, again, not that simple, or not that hard, right? I mean, try to make it as simple as possible. I'm not trying to sound like a fancy guy. I guess I could spin that around a little bit and take you around the bush a couple of times to get you to the answer, but who wants to do that? So that you can just go in and slide your finger and get all across that boring crap? I'm trying not to waste your time. I'm trying to give you the facts quick, and that's basically how that works. So that's chord theory in a nutshell. You have a number. That's how far away from the root you are. You include the root when you count over to the note. You sharp it a half step or sharp it a fret up if it tells you. You lower it 1 if it tells you to, and you're done. You got some add chords and some suspended chords. You know the octaves, right? The octave to 2 is 9. The octave to the 4 is the 11. The octave to the 6 is the 13. That's it. That's what you need to know. If you have a question, leave me a comment because I'll help you out. I'll answer it for you. That's what I'm here to do. I'm not just throwing videos up for viewership. I want to help you play guitar. My goal when I started this whole channel was to reach, not to just reach, but to help 1 million guitar players reach their own personal best. That is my goal with the channel, to reach 1 million players, but to help 1 million players reach their very, very personal best by giving you all the information that I learned along the way, and what allowed me to achieve my goals of becoming a professional guitar player and playing for a living and getting a chance to play with major label bands and do things like that. I had a very short time in my favorite thrash metal band, Whiplash. The music industry was different after COVID. Things changed and opportunities became rarer, let's just say. But I'm here to help you guys reach your personal best because I like new challenges in life, and as life moves along and changes, so do I. As you've noticed some changes in me, there'll be some changes in you as well. Life moves along, it doesn't stop, but we must adapt. And so I'm adapting to the changes in the life that I'm living, folks. Now, if you want to really improve your physical skills before we go, because I'm wrapping it like a present, I'm going to wrap this up now. Just a little extra tip for you. If you want to work your physical skills and gain the maximum amount of physical abilities when you are practicing physical skills, my advice to you is to use the clean channel on the driest version of the setting you can, which means absolutely zero gain on the clean channel, really no treble. Keep it at, you don't want negative treble, less than zero, but keep it at zero. Keep the bass mid treble at zero so none of it pops through. It makes you work the hardest to get your tones to come out. If you go negative on the amp below 12 o'clock on the dial, then you're actually making it harder to struggle because the notes won't even come out, and then you don't even know if you're making them. So you need to leave the dials at 12 o'clock on the clean channel and no gain and no drive, and just start rocking that, rocking your skills. Work your clean channel. Then it's like a donut on the baseball bat. You go over to the gain channel and you'll fly, man. You'll be like Superman ripping all over this thing. You'll go, my God, how come I'm so much faster? Because you work the muscles in the clean channel first. It makes the dirty channel much faster. Guys, thanks for watching my channel. I got a bonus lesson coming up next week. It's phenomenal. It's going to basically, I can't wait to share next week's lesson because I already know what it is. I'm sitting right next to it. Can't wait to show it to you. See you in the next video. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you again. Oops.